All right, men, here we go. Week 2, faithful men. What are we trying to accomplish here? Let's go back before we go forward. You were journaling this past week, looking at those areas of your life where, you know what, a little sketchy. I need to improve in these areas. I need to be shored up here. I don't know that I'm really getting it done. You've identified those areas. Hopefully you prioritize them, and you've read 1 Samuel chapter 8. Bingo, we're ready to go. But before we do, let's look at the overall goal of where we're going on this journaling journey here. And you can find this, the reference on the front of your journal. It reads like this, 1 Samuel 2, verse 35. I will raise up for myself a faithful priest who will do according to what is in my heart and mind. This is God speaking. I will firmly establish his priestly house, that's your family, and they will minister before my anointed one always. That's your future family. All right? God is trying to cause you and I to look at him, others, and ourselves in such a way that we move towards a deeper level of faithfulness. What is that? Full of faith. The areas in your life and mine that we identified last week are leaks where faith is leaking out. And we need to shore up and plug those leaks. In the weeks ahead, we're going to talk about such issues as insecurity, impatience, and identity issues. King Saul, the tall man, is going to help us learn these lessons the hard way, but we're going to get through it. Now, 1 Samuel 8. We notice it opens up with Samuel the prophet, a very godly man, has raised 2 sons who have turned out to be basically knuckleheads. They're deceitful and greedy, and it's evident to all of Israel, including the elders, that these guys aren't carrying no kind of torch into the future. They can't lead themselves, let alone anyone else, so they need to be discarded. Now, should we pass judgment on Samuel as to what kind of dad he's been? I don't know what kind of dad he was, so I can't really say. But I do know that sometimes we can be faithful, and the results don't always turn out the way they want to be. Not initially, anyway. Nonetheless, Samuel is not totally a success because he doesn't have a successor. And this is part of why this journal could be something you pass on to your son, to ensure success in these vital areas. So the elders speak up and they say, listen, basically, we just want a king, okay? Can you just give us a king? We want a king. Why? Because we want to be like other nations. The problem with this is their request is incredibly vague. No qualifiers. We don't want a good king. We don't want a bad king. We don't want any kind. They don't even say we want a king with character, of power, anointed by you, selected by you, God. They don't have any kind of specificity, which, by the way, you and I need to have in our prayer life. If you want to have an intimate relationship with God, don't be so vague. Tell him specifically, in specific ways, as your wife would desire of you to do, how it is you know your prayer is answered because the specificity in which it's answered matches up with your request in God. Okay? That's a big lesson. A lot of people don't realize that. Number 2, they want to be like the other nations, which is kind of bogus, basically. Romans 12, 1 and 2 speaks of this. Don't conform to the patterns of this world. Israel wants a king, a vague request. 2, they want to be like other nations. You know why this stinks? Because they have so assimilated into other cultures over the generations, back to Egypt, that they've lost their way of their individuality, the specificity, and the special personal calling God has placed upon their life, that they're just another people. And I don't want to just be another man. I don't know about you. Do you want to just be another guy lumped in with everyone else? Common, predictable? No, you want to be unique, called of God, a faithful priest, a man of integrity, man head and shoulders above others in a spiritual, moral sense. That's what we're called to be, full of faith. So what I want to encourage you with is this. Get a hold of the fact that God is calling you to something personal, unique, consecrated, set apart, special, individualized to you as a man, based on your past, your present, and the future he's calling you into. Once you get a hold of that, then the insecurity that is inherently with commonness won't actually beat you upside the head. Now, the Israelites have a mentality not unlike that of the Shawshank Redemption. Remember that movie? The men had become so institutionalized when they left the prison, they could not function in everyday life. They had to have someone feed them. They had to someone lock them up. They had to know when they could come out. 3 hots in a cot. It's so institutionalized their thinking that they were entitled. They were expectant of someone else to fight their battles, to clothe them, to house them, to provide them shelter in a safe environment that they really didn't do anything in and of themselves. And they were so wanting this kind of mentality that they were willing to pay the price for a king over them. Listen to this. They were okay with their sons running in front of the king's chariots. They were okay with their daughters cooking for the king. They were okay with 10% of their land being given to the king. They had no problem with 10% of their crops and their vineyards being given to the king. They had no problem with the taxation. They wanted someone to rule over them and fight their battles for them. That's not a faithful man. That's a wimp. That's not somebody who's called, full of faith, to do special things in life. That's common. That's very common. You and I are not called to that. So as we go forward and you read and look at your assignment this week, keep this in mind. Be specific with God. Be specific with those in your life. Expect specific results in return. Get out of the comparison game to other people's possessions, other people's looks, other people's accomplishments, and other people's failures. And let's, for whatever we have to do, stay away from any kind of institutionalized thinking that has so put a box around what you and I can do as individual men and together as men in life. We can't have that. That's going to lead to serious insecurity issues. So as we go into this week, read chapter 9, look at the questions in the handout, and let's prepare ourselves to get deeper in defense against insecurity, impatience, and an identity issue in life. We're going to do great things together. Just stay the course. Journal your way through this journey, and you're going to be real honest about it. You're going to see some real fruit in your life. Read 1 Samuel chapter 9 in preparation for next week.